Welcome to another F.O.E. Today I want to discuss Marxism and why it's so powerful, why most people on this planet are Marxists, why our first instinct as good human beings is to be Marxist, is to be socialist, is to be equal, for equality to be something that's good. Without further ado, let's let the man explain it to you better than I ever can. Thomas Sowell.
And then on 57th Street, it would turn, and this is just the elite part of town.
Sure, right there where the park starts.
Yes, and then the park starts at 59th.
Oh, sorry.
57th, I would turn over, again, the same kind of scene, past Carnegie Hall.
Right.
Up Columbus Circle, there was no Trump Tower at that time, and on up to about 72nd Street, and go out to 5th Avenue, out to Riverside Drive, which is another elite area. So for miles after that, you'd have all these wonderful luxury apartment buildings and so on. And finally, around 129th or 30th Street, it would go on a long viaduct, and then it would do a right turn back into the occupied area, and there you'd see the tenements. And I would wonder, why is this? I mean, why this huge disparity? And there was nobody else. There was no other explanation around. There was nothing there other than Marxism. I stumbled across. I had not read Marx, but I bought a secondhand set of encyclopedias, small set, for some ridiculously low price. And I looked up Karl Marx. I'd heard the name, and the stuff that he said seemed to make sense. And later on, I would get more and more into it. The argument was that the rich had gotten rich by taking from the poor.
Right.
And well, that was one explanation. But what is interesting, there was no other explanation out there really, and that's true largely in our colleges, universities today.
But so by the time you went to Harvard undergrad, well, so wait, you drop out at the age of 16, and you start reading Marx in your late teens.
I started reading Marx. Yes, 1940, at age 19.
Age 19. And then you were in the Marine Corps for a couple of years. What was it, 2-3 years?
2 years. It was actually one year, 11 months, and 5 days, but who's counting?
But who's counting? All right, so by the time you went to Harvard, you had already become intellectually engaged with Marxism.
Yes.
And Harvard didn't talk you out of it. And the study of economics at Harvard didn't talk you out of it, nor did getting a master's at Columbia, nor did getting a doctorate at Chicago dissuade you from Marxism. Is that? And you studied with Milton Friedman of all people. How could you have sat in Milton Friedman's classroom and remained a Marxist?
Some people are just stubborn. What really changed me was not the University of Chicago. It was my first job working in a professional capacity for the government. I was a summer intern.
This is after Chicago? Or
No, while I was still a graduate student.
Got it.
And so during the summer vacation, I worked in the U.S. Department of Labor, and I began to realize, from a number of things, that the government is not simply the personification of the general will like Rousseau or others. The government is an institute. The government institutions have their own institutional interests. One involved the minimum wage law. I was a big supporter of that, but I also knew that there was an argument that minimum wage law simply priced low-wage workers out of a job. And my first assignment dealt with minimum wages in Puerto Rico. And as I looked at the numbers, I would see as they would jack up the minimum wages, the number of jobs would go down and so forth. But there were two explanations. One was that of the economists, that you priced the people out of a job, and the other was that there were hurricanes that had come to Puerto Rico. You see, during the sugar harvesting, and I was studying the sugar industry, and therefore it destroyed a lot of the crop. Therefore, you wouldn't hire as many workers. Now, in Chicago, I had been taught that if there are two different theories, there should be some empirical evidence and principle that could distinguish what would happen under one theory from what would happen under the other.
Right.
And so I wrestled with that for most of the summer. And one morning I came in and I said, I got it. What we need are data on the amount of sugar cane standing in the fields before the hurricane struck. And as I waited for the congratulations, I could see stricken looks around me in the room. Like, this guy has stumbled on something that will ruin us all. You know? And they said, well, we don't have those data. I said, oh, I'll bet the Department of Agriculture has it. He said, well, but that doesn't mean we have it. You'd have to have a request go up the chain of command to the Secretary of Labor. He would then confer with the Secretary of Agriculture. It would come down the chain of command in the Department of Agriculture to whoever has those numbers and so on. I said, good. Well, they say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, so I will now submit my request to the Secretary of Labor, which I did. And I am still patiently awaiting this reply.
And the institute.
It was a long one, yeah, but I think it's worth hearing. You know, you can read from Monday till next Monday. But what really teaches people is your own experiences.